Don't park your spirit. Find the path beyond harmony.
We are so powerful as beings. Nothing can tell you your path except for you. Once you start on this path, you can't turn around. If you believe it, things are going to work for you because every choice you make affects your life. Wherever you go, there you are.
So whether you're a spiritual person or not, you're on a hero's journey. My advice, find a spiritual path. You don't need one. You don't need one.
Mhm.
You're on the journey anyway. If
Yeah.
you want to make the job a little bit easier, your life a little bit easier, find a spiritual path. You're going to go through the dark night of the soul anyway. So you may as well do it with the light of the spiritual truths that it exists on the planet today. You may find that a spiritual path doesn't necessarily need to reflect a philosophy that has been around for a long time. It doesn't have to be a new age philosophy. It can simply be a willingness to be open to the possibility that, as Bob Monroe said, you are more than your physical body. I was talking about this with it because we wanted to, this might be a nice transition to the other dome.
Yeah,
And-
okay, I'm gonna be in that dome.
Excuse me. So with the success that we had in the first Phoenix Dome, with all the transcendent experiences, many physical healing experiences reported.
Really?
I
Wow,
have
I can
no idea.
imagine.
I
Yeah, I
have
can
no
imagine.
idea why. I mean, we could talk for hours on psychospiritual and psychoneuroimmunology.
Mhm.
The immune system gets boosted, etc. There are all these things that modern medicine and scientific research, for those with the willingness to go into this, are finding out that with the mind-body connection, very
Mhm.
mundane stuff like good health, wellness, clarity of mind, stuff needed important stuff. You don't feel possessed to look at your cell phone all day long, stuff like that, well, whatever. So with all that success, Chad said, I have a second dome, because I did go to Phoenix and I saw the second dome and it spins. I had no idea. None of us knew why
It
it spins.
does?
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
want to go in that really bad. Okay.
But Chad had no idea why he was told to make it spin. And at this point, Chad trusted my intuition because of the success we had. And he
Uh-huh.
said, I need you to think about what we should do with the second dome. And I said to him, okay, I have to give you a little backstory here. At the Monroe Institute, people tend to go there because they read Bob's books. Bob Monroe, if your listeners do not know, was a very Western mindset type of person who was a self-made man, very creative, very successful, who in his 50s started having spontaneous out-of-body experiences. Bob, you can read all about it on the website, but suffice to say, people who read Bob's books want Bob's experience.
They do.
And they want to go to the Monroe Institute to have such experience. And some people do, and some people don't. They have experiences. Everybody has
Oh, you do.
experiences they
You
need to
do.
have, but it might not be like Bob's experience. So as a lab technician and as his recording engineer, Bob and I would try to use the brainwave consciousness correlates I was explaining before in the binaural beat stimulus in order to try to figure out how can we improve our method to ensure that somebody would have an out-of-body experience, because that's why people were coming.
Right.
And Bob was so well versed in doing this, and there's evidence that was seen as to why that could be on the EEGs, and the few times that he would acquiesce to be a lab rat. He hated being a lab rat.
Oh, funny.
that we could use to reverse engineer and create different types of binaural beat stimulus, which might be more successful to helping that. Decade after decade, well, for the 13 years that I was there, I was unsuccessful in being able to create that.
Okay.
Through binaural beat stimulus. There are just far too many dynamics involved in having a clinically verifiable out-of-body experience. Psychodynamics, they go into fear and belief, and I mean, so many things. And you could teach technique all day long, and God knows we have enough new age gurus out there now teaching the out-of-body experience, probably unsuccessfully, but that's besides the point. I, being who I am, could not say that I could do it, teach someone to do this. So when Chad, fast forward to the present, so I abandoned the idea for I've been gone from the Institute for 20 years up until the recent time. And they add another 13 years to that. So 33 years of poking around. How do I create an out-of-body experience for someone? I gave up on the idea. Long story, a little bit longer. So Chad offers this second dome and says, I don't know what to do with this. And I said, I've always been curious, and I've been kind of getting a few inspirations of late. I might like to try to create an out-of-body study, an out-of-body experience study. I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve, some of which have to do with binaural beats, but most of which have to do with the psychodynamics I was talking about before with regards to alleviating fear, keeping the arousal levels down so that you can direct consciousness, focus consciousness, keeping that balance between focused consciousness and relaxed, open, effuse consciousness, because the premise here being that energy follows consciousness. Energy affects consciousness. There's this feedback loop that seems to be happening. But if you can control consciousness, you can control energy. And what we're talking about in terms of the out-of-body experience is consciousness moving outside of physical sensory input. So it is essentially at that point somehow interacting with a energy that the mystics like to call various things, but I like to call it impersonal consciousness. Perhaps in the movies, we can use an analogy of the Matrix. In the digital world of the internet, we can understand that energy to be nothing more than a bunch of ones and zeros manipulated to create a alternate type of reality. Enough with analogies, you get a sense of what I'm talking about. It's very impersonal, but we interact with that from our personal sense of consciousness. So the key to getting an out-of-body experience, it occurs to me at this moment in time, might be a blend of the many things that we talked about. Suffice to say, I gave all this pitch to Chad, and he said, I love it. Let's do it. Because Chad's an absolute madman. And I love that about it. We can talk about Chad Andrews and his insanity for another hour, but you know his heart. You've seen him. He is an intensely curious human being who
You're telling me a lot that I had no idea how much I thought this was more you than him, but now I've learned so much more. So I'm glad. I didn't know who did what. Yeah, this is pretty powerful. Chad is amazing.
I would not be doing this if it weren't for Chad Andrews.
Okay, good
to know. The man has invested a fortune. There are two people that I've met in my life that are willing to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to trying to improve the human condition with regards to the way we use and understand and know consciousness. One is Bob Monroe, the other one's Chad Andrews.
Wow.
Bob spent his fortune creating an institute trying to solve a personal problem, that psychic tension.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be crazy. All right. And the scientists who he went to and the doctors that he went to confirmed for him that he was not crazy.
Right.
Well, one of his psychiatrist friends said, Bob, this experience that you're having, we're talking about 1950s America. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Bob, one of these, this experience that you're having here is not very well known in the West, but in the East, they talk about this thing, you know, where gurus and Indian teachers and sages are able to leave their body and commune with the cosmos, the Nirvakati Samadhi experience, you know. And Bob was like, I live on Madison Avenue. I own a broadcast company, a production company.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up my life to go and study in an ashram. Are you out of your mind? No, that's just not going to happen.
That's
But
so
what he did
funny.
instead was started an institute to try to gather the best possible minds. And believe me, there were very few minds on the subject of PSI
Yeah.
research at the time, but he
Yeah.
managed to tap into that community. And the more he tapped into that community, the more they all started coming out of the woodwork. All
Mm-hmm.
these doctors and of all sorts, you know,
Yeah.
whether they be MDs, neurologists, you know, I mean, the list is long, and psychologists. And, you know, if it had to do with consciousness studies, because of Bob Monroe's efforts in patenting and discovering a method of inducing altered states without having to take LSD or psilocybin mushrooms, safe, effective, rapid. He was brilliant. And he brought this to the Western world. Fascinating, man. Anyway, fast forward to Chad. Bob died in 95. Chad Andrews is here alive and well, spending his fortune trying to do the same thing. So
Wow.
anytime I run into individuals like that in my life, I'm moved.
Mm-hmm. Well,
To
you're
work with
supposed
them.
to run into them. Yeah, we're brought to each other. We find each other.
Apparently. I mean, I used to run
Wow.
into rock musicians all the time, but now now it seems to be nothing but insane people who want to discover the secrets of life,
Yep.
which works for me. So that is what we're doing with the second dome, just to wrap up a very long story for
So
your listeners.
how it's not like spinning like
No, ma'am.
like a
No,
force thing, because I mean I would
no, ma'am.
love that. Most people would not. Okay, but
No,
wow. And so
no,
where is this in its development now? Because I know he was so proud of it. He showed it to me. He's like, this is up and coming.
oh, right. So there were several things about the out of body experience which are well understood and well documented. First of all, they usually take place on the bridge of awareness between wakefulness and sleep. In clinical sleep circles, they call that the hypnagogic state. Bridge between what they used to call stage 3, stage 4 sleep. Now they call it N2, N3. I think they changed the terminology recently.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's the bridge between when you are falling asleep and you lose consciousness. That little liminal line
Okay.
is a really hard place to bring awareness to and hold awareness to. But if you can do that, and it is verified on EEG through the brainwave consciousness correlations of theta delta equals hypnagogia when it's
Right.
okay. So Bob was very good and taught me how to be very good with bringing people to the hypnagogic state and helping to remain aware. That's a springboard state, the hypnagogic state. From that point on, you can go into the realm of the subconscious mind and explore that deeply, because all your subconscious content is going to kind of bubble up like it does in dreams. But this,
Right.
you're not asleep and you're not dreaming. You're so deep in a meditative state, you are having access to your subconscious content. In the Hindu tradition, they called it sleep yoga, yoga nidra,
Oh, okay.
which could lead to a nirvakati samadhi experience, which is that oneness, unity, connection with communion with God. I'm way out of my body sort of experience.
Right.
Hypnagogia is that springboard state. You can go further into your subconscious, or you can go and leap into the superconscious. Depends. So I knew how to do that. I know how to help people do that. But when Bob and many other people have out of body experiences and they're in the hypnagogic state, they tend to experience a vibrational aspect that seems to be incredibly intense. The Hindus, again, in that cosmology, and I suppose the Tibetans as well, or the Buddhists as well, call it a kundalini experience. They envision it as a rising of the serpent, which has its base here in the second chakra, first, or Muladhara, I'm sorry, the first chakra, and crawls up the spine. This is a metaphor for an energy of the parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve system, of an energy movement. Now, when we say energy, a lot of people who are scientifically minded will be thinking of the New Age people talking about energy as being
Right.
different things, but they're not. Energy is energy is energy. It's, in this case, electrical impulses running from the back of the head. The oh God, my neurological mind just went blank for a second. I was going to actually use a neurological term, but it goes down the vagus nerve. Thank you. It goes down the vagus nerve through the spine system, and it moves. We literally have this energy moving through our physical bodies. This is a scientific fact. The fact that the Hindus of old and others understood this as a somehow spiritual energy is not unfathomable.
No.
Yeah, we're talking about energy.
Yeah.
The Hindus believe that there is a chakra system, 7 to be specific, that are connected through this, and the kundalini, the snake, rises up to touch on these chakras. And, for instance, an experience that could be a mundane experience, you get a sense of fear, you're shocked. Where do you feel it? Boom. Why do we all feel it there?
I know. Yeah.
Oh, you gave me a heart attack. Yeah. Well, no, it's actually happening in the solar
in my
plexus.
solar plexus. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Doesn't matter. I mean, we can get lost in the semantics and the lexicon and the philosophy, but we're talking about something very important. So that vibrational energy that most people feel when they're about ready to leave their bodies, in their consciousness being in the hypnagogic state, is of interest to me as a researcher. Why do so many people feel this? Well, we try to address that in the Phoenix Dome. And we do that through a waterbed, which has transducers. A transducer, for those of you who do not know, can be construed as anything from a microphone like this one. This is a transducer. It takes my voice energy, which is my vocal cords, resonating through the air, which is kind of like the Matrix. We have all these little particles that are very stable until the force of my speech pattern, which is an actual waveform and can be measured, is felt by this little dynamic piece of paper in there, which bounces in accord with that waveform, which is in a magnetic field, which is then converted to electrical magnetic energy from kinetic energy into a bunch of impulses through a wire here, and is transmitted over the internet, and then is received by ears, microphones, voices, acoustic guitars, speakers. All of these are transducers. Okay. That's a big word for, or a small word for a lot of different types of changing energy. Well, what we've done is tuned that waterbed using transducers to invoke the kundalini. It's pretty powerful.
I cannot even fathom how you are doing this. I mean, that's where people like you need to have your hands in this kind of pot, because somebody like me will go paint and pour.
People like me ought to just do this,
No, that is fascinating. That is so fascinating. It's like I was looking at houses in Arizona quite a bit, and I thought if I did, I would be like one of those frequent club members of the Ascension Chamber. I know I would go there so often. I'm so fascinated about this chamber.
So I've said a
Wow.
lot, and there's more to say on it. Do you want me to continue, or
Well, I
do
know
you
you're
want to change
doing,
the
because from
conversation?
the Facebook post, I know you have like you have people that you're working with now, like testing this out,
We have a
testing it.
total of
Okay.
almost 50 participants.
Okay. And they're going to be using this, and are these people who have already had out of body experiences? They've already
Some of
been
them.
known to have them. Okay.
Some of them, but what we
Yeah.
are what we are trying to do is create a foolproof method to have an out of body experience. So we've got a two-phase experiment. One is to see if where we are in our
Right.
gauging, and eventually Chad and I are going to start doing a lot more EEG readings of talented subjects, because
Right.
once upon a time there was only one talented subject, a guy named Bob Monroe, and he did not want to be a lab rat.
It's like, but you
Okay.
are the lab rat.
Yeah, exactly. But he was also in his mid 70s. He'd already been poked and prodded by people much more qualified to poke and prod than me
Yeah.
and Skip Atwater, who was at the lab at the time. He'd done his time in the trenches. He was like, screw all that. I want to, so what? I have out of body experiences. Get up, leave me alone. Yeah.
It's so funny because in my gateway class, there was 15 of us, and we were virtual because that was with COVID. And I mean, I didn't know what I was going to Monroe for. I mean, I just like I wasn't really a meditator other than walking. I do walking meditation, but it was so transformative. I didn't have any aha moments during anything of that, but just meeting with the people and doing those meditations and the virtual, I don't know how they did it, normal gateway, but for at least 45 meditations within like a 6-7 hour period. When I was done with that week, I was on a cloud. I couldn't even, I mean, as you know, you're not grounded. And this was a virtual retreat. I just remember them talking about, you need to ground yourself. I'm like, what are you talking about? Here I was at the ocean. I was floating on another cloud for weeks. I was just in another universe. And then after going to Gateway and doing that meditation, beer thing that you did, it was like, that was my first actual real active meditation with visions, and it brought me stuff. And that's kind of cracked me open. I have that playing like all the time now. But wow, yeah, I've never had nothing even close to out of body. And it's like, I'm just kind of assuming this time around, it's like, I got to figure it all out from being inside here. I don't get any glimpses outside, but I've had the doors cracked open for me. I can't wait to go and just get pulled out of my body. I'm
I
looking
don't
forward to it.
know. I don't know if that's a bad thing, Cari.
No, it's
I'll
not.
tell
It's not.
you, I'll tell you why. The guy, Mr. Out of Body, right? At the end of his life, okay, now here's a guy, and I knew Bob Monroe. We played poker together. We had lunch together.
Wow.
We were buds, okay? I knew him as a human being, and I knew him as an icon, and I knew him as a researcher, and I knew him as a teacher, and he was in many ways like a second father, grandfather type of figure to me. I was 27 when I first met him. He was
Wow, how
already in his mid
exciting.
70s, right? So Bob was just a brilliant guy. And the reason, what was I trying to say before I said about what Monroe was all about? Oh, the out of body experience. This was not a man who wanted to have an out of body experience. This happened to
Right.
him. And it became the why did this happen to me was the driving question.
Right.
And once he relaxed into it, okay, I'm not crazy. My doctors tell me I'm not going to die. The vibrations had him worried. He thought he was
Right.
having, some kind of seizures or something. But I'm having these experiences. The researcher and the curiosity sides of him kicked in. And he started to explore, well, what happens when you go out of body? Most people who want to have such an experience oftentimes do not. And I think that, and I'm not a fan of predeterminism, but I think that may be appropriate to that individual's growth. I do not need to have an out of body experience to know that I am more than my physical body, because my other experiences in consciousness exploration, like the samadhi experience, which are not out of body experiences, have taught me a great deal about the nature of I and the nature of I am. There's a distinction between the two of those, which I will leave for your listeners to figure out for themselves. But there's a space between being and not being, which drives the fear most people, that motivates a lot of people to want to have an out-of-body experience. Why do you want to have an out-of-body experience? Because you want to know you survived physical death. Well, you can be a Roman Catholic and believe that. Yeah, but you're not going to know it, are you?
Yeah.
You could be a Buddhist and believe that, unless you have the types of experiences that bring you to there. You can believe it, but you're not going to know it. Same applies for every other religion. So imagine the tension an atheist feels when their physical life is all they have from a psycho-spiritual dynamic. I do
From her
not
husband.
believe, right. I don't
He
believe.
is his body. When he dies, it's gone forever. And I'm like, I'm married to you.
Right.
I mean, it's like we're so opposite.
And that would suck, to put it mildly.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm alive, I live my life, and then I die, and then it's over.
Yeah. Dust.
Well,
I'm dust.
right. People who have out-of-body experiences know that they will survive physical death.
Yeah.
I've had enough experiences to know I will survive physical death. I'd be very surprised if it was I, as I know me, that survives, but I know I will be a part of that in whatever way that truly understands, because then we could talk for hours on that. But the process of having an out-of-body experience, in my opinion, is not necessary to one's spiritual growth or spiritual journey. As a matter of fact, Bob came to understand the exact same thing, because we used to talk in the lab all the time and say, okay, Bob, we know we're more than our physical bodies. Now what?
Okay,
Now
check.
what? Hey, it's like, okay, exactly. I had breakfast. Now what? What does the rest of my day look like?
Right.
Am I going to cling to this breakfast that I had in the morning? No, I'm going to pursue
Digest
my
it and move
life.
on.
Right. I'm going to
Yeah.
there are things to be done in
Yeah.
life, needed
Yeah.
things. That precipitated a lot of where Bob and I were hoping to take the teachings and explorations at Monroe Institute. Because most of the people who came to Monroe Institute were very interested in the out-of-body experience, they didn't really want to answer the now what question. They wanted the I am more than my physical body question. So there's no way to really teach that. The Monroe Institute was very good at providing a platform, as you know, through
Yeah.
your experiences there, for that to happen as a potential experience.
Right.
But there's no way to absolutely guarantee that. And people who read Bob's books, because of documenting his experiences in the out-of-body state, want that experience.
I'll
It's
have
like,
what he's having.
right, exactly.
Like,
But it's a bit like you saying to me, I want to live your life. Or me
yep.
saying to Cari, I want to live your life. No, I want to know your life.
Yeah.
I want to know what it's like to be God in another being, expressing that thing and finding this place where we meet. That's
Mhm.
the now what for me.
Wow.
So that's my little speech for a Sunday sermon. You could do it.
Wow. No, that's pretty powerful. I mean, it's funny too, because it never even dawned on me once or crossed my brain that I would go to Gateway or Peak Week thinking I'd have an out-of-body experience. I'd go for whatever I'm going to experience. I mean, I came into Monroe much later in my spiritual journey. The guy who had the cartwheel meditation, when I had it, he also, he told me that he went to the Monroe Institute. I think his Gateway program was the week after Bob died. And he said that there was 3 people that showed up at his Gateway program and this boggled my mind, because it's higher consciousness, it's expanding your consciousness. And 3 people were sent by their companies And I guess on the first day, they're like, oh, we're not doing, like, you're not going to make me go to this space. And I mean, it's like, that cracked me up. I was like, yeah, you can't make somebody, I mean, the man I was married to, it's like, you cannot make somebody want to go in and open themselves up and see if they can find their better self. It just, I mean, it's a very, very personal journey for every single one of us. And like you said, I don't care if I have an out of body experience. I've had so many things that are unexplainable, that have been beautiful and magical, that happened through my life, that there's like, there could be no question for me. You know, just, it's just, we all go through our journey, and if we're supposed to, we do. If we're not, we don't. But I would be curious though, if, you know, when you guys get that thing up and running, I will definitely try it. I mean, but if I, you know, like,
we are
but I don't
pulling
care
out.
if I do or not.
Yeah, we're pulling out all the stops though.
I can't
mean,
imagine how you're
the
doing
training, well, I could bore your listeners, but
that.
we're pulling out all the stops. The objective is to have a clinically verifiable out-of-body experience. The dome does spin, and we put it to good use. So the fact that Chad built it as a spinning dome, I said, wow, you know, we can use efference copy as a focus for that. And I won't explain efference copy to your listeners. It's you know, but yes, we're pulling out all the stops. And I
Very
look forward
exciting.
to seeing what happens as a result of that.
So
I
do
want
I.
I want to learn more about your. Is it permissible for me to interview you?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you're supposed to be the interviewer.
No,
and
no, no,
everything.
no. I don't, there's no rules in life, are there, Mark? There's no rules at all. You can ask me any questions whatsoever. I pretty much surrender.
I will answer that question by saying there are rules in life, but I can kind of like to break them. So
Me too. I kind of do too.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Or bend them.
yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody in the process, but I'm going to kind of do my own thing. Okay. Okay. So you revealed a bit of your life growing up.
Mm-hmm.
No religious background
None.
whatsoever. None.
Yeah,
Whatsoever.
my mom married 5 men. Not one of them was a churchgoer. I did go to Mormon dances in high school though, because it was the only thing to do in Henderson, Nevada. You know, leave room for Jesus, leave room for Jesus, between the couples that are dancing. Yeah. And that's, I think, I mean, lately I've like been brought full circle to awarenesses that I just didn't think that I would ever have. I mean, not being religious, the word God never left my lips ever prior to Sedona, Arizona in May of this year. Because to me, it wasn't real. I used to, when I was younger, you know, judge like, oh, you have to go to church, you believe in God. I have no idea. And so, but I have known there's a higher power. I've used all those words. But no, since Sedona, and since I've had some pretty incredible direct contact, I'm talking to the boss. I'm talking to the boss directly now.
What happened in Sedona?
See, I've been writing my book for 40 years, and I've been writing this story, but I just never could finish it. You know, I was like going to help people with their lives. That's just always been my thing. I'm going to be a motivational speaker. I'm going to stand on stage and I'm going to Tony Robbins everybody and make you happy and just make you leave here and go like, yes, my life has changed. But it's like, I've never known what I'm supposed to talk about. So I went to Sedona. Actually, some friends from my Monroe group went to Sedona, and Tenagny, one of the girls, had magical experiences happen. So I'm like, that's it. I'm booking it. So I booked a trip by myself. I booked my flight, my car, parking, and 4 days hotel, because I was going to let guidance lead me where I go for the next 2 nights. Mm-hmm. And literally, Bill Buellman did. I got up on Bella Rock and I'm like, clarity now. I'm just screaming clarity, clarity. I want clarity. I went there with no plans other than to climb on every rock and allow guidance to take me. So every day I was hiking around these mountains, just 15 miles one day. I just loved it. I have so much energy. The energy there shot me right out the rocket.
Can I put you on pause for just 1 second?
Yeah.
Did you have a preconceived notion that there would be anybody to give you any kind of guidance? I mean, where did that concept even come into your head?
I've been literally living by following guidance, I'd say the last 2 years, to where I don't make plans. Like my friend will call me and say, what are you doing this weekend? And then she knows I'm dead air, because like, I don't plan. I follow guidance. So every day there, I followed guidance where it was supposed to take me. And at some point, I don't even remember how or why I reserved another motel for Thursday and Friday.
Mhm.
And that Thursday, I was hiking and I decided to go check in 3.5 hours early, which is ridiculous because with COVID, you can't get in until 4. They open the windows and the doors.
Right.
And so I'm like, why am I going early? But I did. So I go there, and this is my entire book is about this experience. I go to check into the hotel, and there's a guy checking into the hotel, and ends up we sit down and we start chit-chatting. And so long story, very, very short. When I met him, I've always told myself when my husband and I are done, I'm alone for the rest of my life. I love being alone. I thrive by being a hermit. It's just, I know I'm not going to be, but it's like, I never saw anybody else in my life. And then I meet this man. He was a retired park ranger. We're the same age. And all of a sudden it was like, who is this man? So our rooms are finally ready. The guy gives us our keys, and we're like, well, I'm in room 113. I'm in 109. Call me later. So I went, took a shower, had some food. Then he called me and we talked for like an hour. And then I'm like, I need to go walk some more. I mean, I've got to go move. If I don't get 5 miles a day, so I just go walking. I go walking back towards Bell Rock, and I'm like, it's too far. I was out there like an hour, and I came back and I called. I said, I'm going to be in the courtyard if you want to go chat. So I'm
Mhm.
sitting in the courtyard looking at my map of Sedona, plotting out my next 2 days. And he comes out and we talk again. He said he's being picked up at 4:30 in the morning by the shuttle. He's flying back to Massachusetts. He flew in the day before.
Mhm.
And so the motel manager, he comes over and he sees us talking again. And he was like this cute. He's like, oh, like I put you guys together by not letting you be in your room. Like, how cute is this? So anyway, I thought nothing of it. And I ended up asking for his, like, can I contact you? Can I find a way to stay in touch? So I wrote his email address on my map. And then we said goodnight, didn't even shake hands. And off he went, off I went, finished my 2 days, went to the Ascension Chamber. And so he and I were emailing, and wow. I mean, it got crazy. So we were in touch, and then Sunday, I was here Saturday, then Sunday, I was doing my laundry. I woke up and I looked out my bedroom window, and I'm very clairaudient. Song lyrics very clearly came through my head, said,
Mhm.
if I found the place, would I recognize the face? Something's telling me it must be you all of my life. The Stephen Bishop song, which I played to death at the radio station.
Okay.
And it was like, as soon as that song came through, visions of this man and I in multiple lifetimes just started swirling through me. I swear it was like, I was like just spinning, like, oh my God, I've known this man. It's like, we're supposed to be together. We're going to be together. So we're talking about he's going to fly out. We're going to get an Airbnb. We're going to stay there for 2 weeks and just figure everything else out. We're life partners. We're supposed to be together. Well, he died. He was very sad. He died 7 weeks and 8 days after, no, 7 weeks and 8 days, 7 weeks and 5 days after I met him.
Mhm.
And then, but it didn't stop there. During a Zoom call with a bunch of people with Monroe, there was this girl that was talking, that was out there. She's talking about, all kinds of stuff, that it was more crazy than anything I've ever talked about. I'm like, I need to reach out to that lady.
Mhm.
So after the call, I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, I need to tell you this story. And so I shared the story, and there was a lot more that happened. But so she said, do you want me to do a soul retrieval? I'm like, what's that? So I'm like, anything. Because, he just disappeared, basically fell off the face of the earth. We'd been in touch and then he was gone. And so it took a while, but finally she said, let's talk. So I had her on a Zoom call so I could record it, so I could hear it all. But she said that he was very anxiously awaiting our contact so he could talk to her.
Mhm.
And he pretty much said that we were not supposed to be together in this lifetime. But the last thing he had to do to fulfill his contract on this planet was to meet me. He had to make connection with me. And so I'm like, he flew from Massachusetts to Sedona for 2 days. His Airbnb fell through. And so he flew back. I fly out there, and it's like, so I meet this man. But so he said he went to heaven, saw his loved one, said, I need to go back down and be with Cari because I'm there to help her write her book. And I am also there to be the conduit, basically open me up to connect me to divine, to
Mhm.
give me that connection, which when she did the reading, I thought, oh, just to like help me sound knowledgeable in my book about what I'm writing about divine. No, it wasn't that at all. So meeting him, he was supposed to be, just to meet me. And then he did say he's with me every night. He holds my hand while I sleep. I was with him when he died. I was holding his hand when he died in Massachusetts. which I have no doubt that I was my higher self. But so since that time, he has come through me in so many ways. Our symbol was a rose, and there's days like that I'll take my dog for a walk, who, as you know, stubborn dogs, hardwired, they do the same thing. My dog took me on this walk. I'm like, where are we going? By just rose bushes, just tons of them. And since then, I've got messages from him for his ex-wife. But so he cracked me open to the divine, and then I ended up during this interview show interviewing Maria Elena Mexia and Dan Erickson. And it was after those 2 interviews and doing a map of the soul with Maria Elena, it was like everything cracked open and came clear to where I am now completely connected by myself. It's like I don't need Alden anymore to help me connect. It's like now I have that connection. And that just came through me literally a few days ago as the last chapter of my book as well. It's like I've now found my way to the boss, the one that I couldn't even speak his name. And I think it's because I've been a clean slate. I've had no preconceived notions, no belief systems about church. Like you're going to hell. I mean, no, none. I have no belief systems. I was like a wide open slate. And I think that, I don't know. I just know that I follow guidance religiously. That's my only religion. I just follow guidance. And it took me to this space that I just surrender and allow. And I just can't wait to get back to Sedona because I just love that place. I loved it so much. A little too hot for me in the summer around there, but so yeah. So my book started Sedona, and my book is almost done. I guess I needed that last chapter. And my editor, I just interviewed her the other day because she's highly, highly spiritual. And so yeah, I just had a great talk with her the other day.
Is this your first book?
First one I'm actually going to finish. Yeah, I actually submitted one to my publisher a few years ago, but I stopped it because it was so old news. Because my growth was so fast. It's like this book now. I'm not at this growing place anymore, so my book can come out of me from where I am. I'm not being pulled like this. I've kind of arrived at a plateau where I can write the same thing and not have it change anymore. It's been crazy.
Writing? You like it?
I never was a writer, but I've become it. And I dictate. I've got Google Docs on my phone and I walk all the time. I'm dictating as I walk. I've written, I'd say 100,000 pages. Nothing. I mean, I've got a blog, but I just write, but most of it doesn't even go anywhere. Nobody sees it.
Right.
So yeah, I've written so much. And I never saw myself as a writer ever.
I'm curious to know, because you're talking about a 6-year journey, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to a 50-year journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish I could say more.
No, I don't. Believe me, I don't. I just walk really slow. Other people, you go 90 miles into the desert, you can run 90 miles out, or you can walk really slow like I do.
In the desert, I'd be going slow.
But as somebody who doesn't do things slow, as I'm hearing your story unfold, I'm curious to know how your dark night of the soul, how radical it was for you, because I think it's important for listeners, personally speaking. I don't want to dominate your show by any means, but
no.
I think it's really important for when people get involved in this type of work. My experience, it's because of that tension between whatever it is that's itching inside of you and what is. The knowns and the unknowns, we'll call it that simply. And that sets us on a path. A lot of people's lives blow up as a result. My life has blown up a few times.
Yep.
I know the experience. Simultaneously, that can bring on a lot of questions for people. It's like, wait a second, this whole thing was supposed to be love, light, unicorns, puppy dogs, conversations with cherubs and, my deceased grandmother, or meeting Jesus, or meeting whatever. And here I am not experiencing that. And I want to immerse myself in a bottle of Chivas Regal in order to avoid the pain that I'm feeling. I'm curious to know how difficult it was, being that you ran. my journey, even though there have been points
Mm-hmm.
where it's blown up,
Yeah.
has been relatively smooth,
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
guidance. Sometimes I look at my guidance and I go, if I could be so bold as to speak New York, what the are you thinking? You know, and I'm not alone. Everybody who's on a path
Mhm.
has such things. The trials of Job, for instance. This
Yeah.
is not, this is not
No.
unique to the new age. This is old
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
So my question to you with that preamble is, how did that go for you, being that you
Well,
run so fast?
Well, so I've had a couple dark nights of the soul because I've gone through many, many chapters of my life, leaving the, painful childhood. I was married previously to a man that I met him miraculously on an airplane. Just I knew he was my husband. I mean, looking back, it's like that was the miracle. Um, but he was going to rescue me from my horrible life in Las Vegas, where I was suicidal, drugs,
Mm,
sex, and rock and roll. Just wanted to die.
right.
I had no role model as a parent. I had no idea how to adult. So I prayed for a knight in a shining armor to come and rescue me and whisk me away. And I met him on an airplane. 2.5 years later, he moves me to Ohio. And I get there and I'm telling this Cinderella story, how I met this guy until I realized that this man, his ex-wife cheated on him. And
Mm,
so I had to live in a bubble. It's like I couldn't go to work or anything or go to like places where people were because I would sleep with men because that's what women do. We just can't hold ourselves together. We just do that.
yeah.
So I was with this man in the same house for 5.5 years.
Mhm.
And it was bad. I mean, I would cry myself to sleep at night. I mean, I did finally get a job and I was working, and then it turned out I went to lunch with the whole company because we had to, and there was men at the lunch, so I had to quit the next day. And I let this man run my life. He checked my wardrobe every day. I had to turn some shirts around so it was higher. And I allowed myself to live in this universe. Okay. I
Yeah.
tolerated it. So it got so bad. I just thought when it got so bad for my mother with her fourth husband, she shot him. I went to the bookstore and I'd never been in a bookstore. I realized there was a self-help section. I found a
Mhm.
couple books, Cinderella Complex and looking out for number one. I just took them back. And at night I would sit there and read these books as I was going to sleep, and they empowered me. They gave me strength. And it was like, it's like people have lived through this shit before. So
Mhm.
I made myself the promise the next time he tells me you do X, we're getting a divorce, because he was throwing at that constantly saying he's going to throw me out on the street here in Ohio. I don't have anybody. I don't.
Yeah, right.
And so I made myself the promise the next time he says, like, get a divorce. So we went out to a karaoke bar, which we never went to bars because there were men there and they drank, God
Mhm.
forbid. But we were with his sister and her husband, not ex-husband. And I went up and I sang. And then people in the audience were sending up request slips either to do duets with me, or for me to sing other songs.
Mhm.
I was floating. I was just like the star of the show. Went home that night and he's like, "Did you have fun?" I'm like, "Oh, it was the best night ever." And he said, "Good. Because if you ever sing in public again, we're getting a divorce." The second those words came out of his mouth, it
Mhm.
was as if I left my body. I felt this lightness, this
Mhm.
I knew I was like, it was like I was no longer there. I did it in advance. So the next morning he went to work and I moved out. And I mean, that was the beginning of hell because I moved into my own apartment. I worked out of my home. So I was able to work out of my home.
Right.
But now I had to let go of this comfort zone. It was my comfort zone. Living in hell was all I knew. And so
Mhm.
it took me 5 years of like, I kept referring to it like I had like a pinky toe still in the water, but the rest of me was like trying to still in the hole. It took me 5 years to leave him completely mentally, physically, and get myself to vibrationally, which I know now, this space to where it was like, who was he again? How was I married to that man? And ironically, well, he never said no to his kids either. He had two sons and they never ever heard the word no. And
Mhm.
one of them at 15 and a half, right before I left, he said to his dad, he said, "Dad, can you take me to Tammy's, his girlfriend's house?" His dad said no. Eric and I looked at each other. He'd never said no. That night we went to bed, woke up the next morning. He had taken a butcher knife to the entire kitchen and destroyed it. The cupboards, everything to shrapnel. No, he didn't get in any trouble, but he is in trouble now, 28 years for kidnapping in jail.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. 28 years. So yeah, it was a lot of years, but it was like once I started realizing we make choices. I chose to stay in that area. I chose to stay with that man. But just once you start realizing that we do have a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for, we have enormous power. How we feel is everything. Yeah. And so the dark night leaving this relationship was ironic because I was going through Carolyn Mace's advanced energy anatomy, which actually I was at the chapter when it talks about this. As I was going through it, I was doing it play by play with her book, and it was so much easier. So I highly recommend Dark Night of the Soul, Carolyn Mace. She's got that handled.
Well, it worked for you. Gave you a roadmap, didn't it?
Yeah. So let's do an actual wrap up of the show. So for the recording, so
we can. I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
You like country music?
Yes.
Okay.
Come on. No. Okay. So, what you got for me, Mark?
Pick a female country artist who you are.
Female?
Or pick a male.
Okay.
Somebody from the class of 89 or like really early.
Oh. George Strait?
Go ahead. Let's hear
George Strait?
Yeah.
Let's hear what?
Let's hear you sing it.
I was thinking George Strait.
Why not? Our love is unconditional.
Oh man,
Do it from the start.
I love it.
See it in your eyes. I can feel it from my heart.
That's when it was dusty.
Here on after, let's stay the way we are right now. Let all the love and laughter that a lifetime will allow. Come on, sing it with me.
Okay, what's the chord?
I cross my heart
Okay.
and promise to.
I can't remember the words.
Give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true. In all the world, you'll never find a love as true as mine.
Tried to harmonize with you there. And
nice harmony. I was going to harmonize with you, but you went there first.
We both tried the harmony.
No,
that was
great.
Wonderful. You were the best, Mark. I really enjoyed this.
Pleasure spending the time with you. Thank you.
And we'll do it again. We're going to do it again. Definitely want to chat with you again.
I cross my heart and promise to give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true. In all the world, you'll never find a love as true as mine. And if along the way we find a day it starts to storm, you'll have the promise of my love to keep